Hi folks, it is time. Sorry, I'm a little lopsided and I'm not going to mess with the camera. I'm just going to do this recording because it's important, I feel, for me to do it. Full moon in Gemini, December 15th, Sunday, my time at 1:02 a.m. So it's heading to Friday evening. It's Friday 4:30 as I'm doing this. So the full moon is really a little over 24 hours away, even though it doesn't quite feel like that because if you think of Sunday, it feels much further. But it's just about as we enter Sunday. It's really Saturday night for me when the full moon occurs. So tomorrow night for me, closer than we think. And yeah, it's time to look at this energy. Now, I've talked about the full moon in Gemini in the last couple of videos, particularly the weekly overview that I posted on Wednesday. Thank you for those of you who saw it and paid attention to that video. And, it's a full moon, so just expect that as we continue to head towards it, and it's a full moon where the only aspect that the full moon itself is making is really not a very pleasant or a happy one. It squares Neptune. Now, I'm saying it's not a very pleasant or happy one. What I should say is, well, here's what I mean by that. We're in a new moon period. The new moon in Sagittarius was on November the 30th and is exercising its influence. The month of Sagittarius this year runs from November the 30th to December the 29th, when give me 1 second, when the Capricorn new moon occurs. December the 28th. Oh, December the 30th. Goodness. December the 30th. So November 30th to December the 30th, month of Sagittarius. From one new moon to another. 28-day, roughly, lunar cycle creating the month. The word month being derived from the moon. So, and that new moon was square Saturn in Pisces. And this full moon is square Neptune in Pisces. And Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is in Gemini. And Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is in Sagittarius. There's an intensity and a focus to the energies. And the intensity and the focus of the energies I can very easily describe as matters in the Sagittarius part of the chart needing to be brought into alignment in such a way that Jupiter can create the appropriate endings and new beginnings, ending a 12-13-year cycle, starting a new 12-13-year cycle in the Gemini part of your chart. And both the Gemini and especially the Sagittarius part of the chart contributing to help Saturn stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, which has been under the influence of Neptune's transit since 2012, which if you're trying to head in a more spiritual, monastic, renunciatory, philanthropic, in a sense, direction, or a really creative or artistic direction, then that's fine. But with Neptune, again, like the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and even Chiron, they are preoccupied with us releasing what is not for us or potentially toxic to us. Neptune's way of doing it is just in some ways the most muddling and challenging of all, just because it does so by introducing an element of fogginess or deception or loss or theft or gaslightiness, or whether we are playing our cards close to our chest and not being completely clear and transparent with the facts, depending on where Pisces sits in your chart of somebody else's, it's like it muddies the water so that the clarity is not there. And Saturn's entry in Pisces since March 2023, of course, is trying to bring some structure and clarity to this. Lessons to be learned, us reflecting on our own karmic consequences that have contributed to creating the fogginess, and where things are not clean, not clear, not structured. If we're thinking about artistic, creative, spiritual goals, then Saturn is trying to both establish. Sorry, we're going to lose the light, so I'm going to change the lighting. Isn't it nice that I'm actually set up to be able to do it, so I don't just fade into darkness here in front of your very eyes. So Saturn is trying to both give us a sense of what is real, and also trying to give us a sense of how can we, and I know that a lot of you who watch my videos have heard me say this tons of times, but it's actually very relevant to this full moon. How can we responsibly stabilize, structure, act in the most mature, wisest, Saturnian, non-reactive, intelligent manner, so that we can get things to a conclusion that not only talk to us getting our fullest potential out of a situation, but also maybe doing so in a way that creates a certain amount of ongoing peace and stability to the best. In certain cases, this may involve compromises. And the first thing related to a full moon video that I just want to say is an escalation of energy, an escalation of emotional energy, an escalation of intuitive energy. It could be internal, it could be external, it could be that you're having an internal meltdown, it could be someone externally is having a meltdown, it could be you throwing a tantrum, all that kind of, it could be that things start to become unwieldy in such a way that even though we have a lot to do, it feels like things are chaotic, especially this past week as the moon has grown bigger and bigger and bigger. And while we've been productive, often as we are heading to a full moon, we often feel like, yes, we're being productive, but we're not on top of everything. I mean, the fact that I did my weekly overview, which I normally do on Sunday or Monday, on a Wednesday, and I'm doing the full moon video, typically, which I like to do about 48 to 72 hours before a full moon, a little over 24 hours, is very sort of characteristic of the, I'm spinning all these plates, and while I'm getting stuff done, I don't feel like I'm on top of stuff. Once the full moon is done, next week, energetically, as I've mentioned to you lots of times, is often the most productive. I honestly don't know what that noise is, where it's coming from. I don't even know if you guys can hear it, but there's some sort of leaf blower noise going on. Of course, sirens are blaring, and it always, when I'm doing a reading, just drives me a little bit crazy. It feels so loud and so present. Anyway, the week after the full moon energetically is often the best time to get things done. The energies are more balanced. The moon is still full enough. We still have a certain amount of vitality, and the energies are balanced enough that we can actually get things done. Okay, so just have a certain amount of compassion and pay attention to what is becoming full in the Gemini part of your chart, and how all of that connects to, if what I said with regard to bringing the Sagittarius part of the chart into alignment so that Jupiter in Gemini, transiting Gemini, can create its ending and new beginning, and Saturn can stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, if that resonates for you and you want more details on that, look at the new moon in Sagittarius video that I did around November the 30th. And that's not the only energy operating in December. If you are curious about how the Venus in Aquarius, Venus is transiting, or what else is operating in December, look at the December monthly overview. I'm saying that so that I don't end up spending a lot of time repeating the content of those videos here. Also, actually, I'm going to take this as a step, because I always leave this to the end of the video and it doesn't work. December 15th, if you are interested in getting a $50 30 to 40 minute reading from me around a particular topic, one topic, focusing on one house, one matter, one question, then you have till December 15th to email me, okay, so that we can set that up. After December 15th, I'm going to go back to my regular readings, and this Mercury retrograde special that I'm offering, I am going to stop. If you're interested in giving readings as holiday gifts, you can use the email address below in the description box below to reach out to me as well. You can gift a 30 to 40 minute reading around a single topic or a full reading. Okay, I want to put that out there early enough in the content so that those of you who will eventually drop off can still just be reminded of that. Now let's get into the heart of the full moon. We know, well, actually, let me finish that last thought. Full moon is in the Gemini part of the chart. The sun is in Sagittarius. They're squaring Neptune in Pisces. Becoming aware of what is emotionally and intuitively full in the Gemini part of the chart in such a way that there's an awareness of What needs to be, it's a very, I really am willing to sort of put money on this with this full moon, that we're heading to a direction where we're heading to we're pondering, and as we head towards the full moon, and we're already in this space now, that we may be very, very acutely sensitized to. What is it that needs to be brought into alignment in the Sagittarius part of the chart? How is the Gemini part of the chart, the opposite house in the chart, activated? And as we head to this full moon, it may be that we are much more sensitized to what needs to be managed in the Gemini part of the chart, and how all of that can contribute to stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. And we may be because we're in a month that is characterized by the new moon in Sagittarius squaring Saturn in Pisces, we may be in a place where we're being very, very careful about how we move forward, and we may be very acutely attuned to how, if we act in a certain way, it could make things dramatic or chaotic, or it could actually bring a certain amount of structure to a situation that may be inherently problematic, but needs a kind of a more mature approach through which to handle whatever it is that needs to be handled. Everything about the full moon suggests potentially that we're trying to understand how to bring a complicated situation, the results of which are related to the Pisces part of the chart, but the activity of which is somehow symbolized by this polarity between bringing the Sagittarius part of the chart into alignment, how the opposing Gemini house is related to that matter, and how we are trying to bring the Sagittarius part of the chart of the alignment in such a way that Jupiter in Gemini can create the ending and new beginning in the Gemini part of the chart. And this full moon in Gemini, it's not necessarily all that close to Jupiter. It's about 8 degrees away. Some people would consider it conjuncting Jupiter. For me, a conjunction has to be 5 degrees within. That leaf blower thing has stopped, and you will now find me less squinty as I'm trying to get my thoughts across. So sorry if that was a little uncomfortable to watch. But I think an ideal way to use this energy is to be in a contemplative mood. We're also dealing with the fact, of course, that the ruler of this full moon, Mercury in Sagittarius, is stationary, ready to go direct, getting ready to go direct on December 15th, the day of the full moon. And so those of you who have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, as you're heading to the end of this week, as you're heading to Saturday night, as you're heading towards Sunday, put together the finishing touches on whatever it is that you have decided and been decisive about over the past 3 weeks, so that while Mercury has been retrograde, so that after Mercury goes direct and starts to gather some speed after maybe December the 18th or so, you can be in implementation mode over the next 3 months. Those of you who have Mercury direct in your birth chart, be in a space where you can actually contemplate and identify what you have learned over the past 3 weeks or so that makes you think that you need to go back to the drawing board. And then it's after Mercury goes direct that you can be a place of conversation and engagement. I don't think that the full moon in of itself is an ideal time to be in active communication, even though the impulse may be there. I feel like we need to if you're in communication, it could be that you're in communication in a kind of an auxiliary way. So if there's an issue between you and somebody else or another party or parties, the communication you could be involved in as a result of this full moon could be with somebody else to contemplate what is going on. I don't know that it's necessarily the right time for anybody, whether you have Mercury retrograde or Mercury direct, while Mercury is stationary and we have this full moon, to be actively working anything out. I think it is a better time of this energy to go, What on earth has been going on in the Sagittarius part of the chart? What is the connection with the Gemini part of the chart? What do I need to process? What do I need to sit with? And I don't even know that you will be in a place where you will actively be able to process very much with a stationary Mercury, because even our cognitive abilities, Mercury, as far as I'm concerned, is about the mental sphere and what is going to come out of our mouth, or whether it actually happens verbally or it happens when we're typing on our phones or our computers when we're communicating. So there's the internal communication and the external communication that Mercury rules, along with transactions and all other Mercury stuff, commuting, buses, travel, whether you're going to get your bags, and and of course, as we head to this full moon, it's because Mercury is stationary, it could also be a time when Mercury retrograde things, the mundane Mercury retrograde things, just have a propensity to peak again. It's almost like it is a full moon in Gemini, the ruler Mercury is stationary. I would say to anybody, take your foot off the gas. If you're in communication contemplative mode, you may find that part of the communication is going to go around in circles, because Mercury is just there's. But if you actively need to be working something out, some sort of third party to the situation maybe in some ways a better outlet than directly with the parties involved, where you're trying to bring the Sagittarius part of the chart into alignment. Do it in such a way that Jupiter can create the appropriate endings and new beginnings in the Gemini part of the chart, and reach some sort of a constructive resolution in the Pisces part of the chart. And reaching a constructive resolution in the Pisces part of the chart is very dependent on us keeping our intentions clean as we act. But here, the title of this video is, of course, Give Peace a Chance. But by peace, I do not mean self-betrayal. And by peace, I don't mind compromising in such a way that we feel like our pockets have been picked. What I do mean is contemplating how energy leaks and emotional leaks can be managed in such a way that they can all but disappear for everybody involved. Because everyone's, if you're in conflict with someone and you're contemplating. Now, full moons can bring visibility. So do not ignore that aspect of, there could be something positive that is also emerging through this process. It is a full moon in Gemini. Depending on where Gemini sits, it could bring you a certain amount of temporary visibility, popularity. You don't have to take away from that. And some matter related to the Sagittarius part of the chart may also come to a natural cresting, a peak. Typically with full moons, when Mercury is actively direct or even retrograde but has some speed, it could lead to a greater ease in communication. I just think with a stationary Mercury, whatever it is that you're trying, it's like whatever it is that you're trying to solve it's like bubble gum that has been blown to its fullest capacity. And I think right now, before you either blow any more or do anything with this full moon, it is just time to let that bubble be at its biggest and just pause. It's not the best analogy. But if something has expanded emotionally and energetically, and it has to do with the Sagittarius part of the chart, the house occupied by Sagittarius part in your chart, is directly related with the opposing Gemini house, and you get the connection with what needs to happen to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, it is not really a time to be rash or be active with a stationary Mercury. If it was a full moon and Mercury was direct and gathering speed, I would say there's a greater chance of communication not being ideal, but leading to something important being discussed in such a way that it could ultimately read. Right now, with the stationary Mercury, what decisions have you made if Mercury is retrograde in your birth chart? Dot the I and cross the T on that. What have you learned that was in your blind spot if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart? Time to process and identify that and take a deep breath. And there's enough going on that is bringing vitality into the situation. Venus opposing Mars a few days ago, actually yesterday, I think, on December the 12th, is enough of that opposition energy. Mercury retrograde just the day before the full moon tomorrow, trining a retrograde Mars in Leo, is feeding a certain amount of vitality. Let the moon get full. Remember that the retrograde Mercury also is trining Chiron 3 times. There's a lot of room for empowerment and healing and coming back to yourself. It is squaring Saturn in Pisces, Mercury retrograde. It is opposing Jupiter in Gemini 3 times as well. With everything that you have learned so far, it is just time to pause and move towards a certain amount of gathering of forces. I would say focus on self-empowerment. Towards moving in a direction that can bring a certain amount of resolution or calm or peace over situation. This is going to be very individual for each of us. As I said, peace is not putting yourself in harm's way. Peace is not passivity. Giving peace a chance is to contemplate how in messy situations resolutions can be reached in such a way that all parties can carry on with why they're actually here and what their lives is supposed to be about, than getting mired in situations that take a lot of energy out of everyone's sense of purpose. And with Mars retrograde now, there is the introduction of an element of passivity, reviewing what we're fighting about, what is worth it, and how are we going about it. And Mars is just freshly, Mars is pretty stationary still. It's gathering momentum in retrograde. But the other transits around this time also kind of fascinating as part of this story. There are 3 transits that are encoded into this full moon. The first of these is very much part of the story. Jupiter retrograde, getting ready to square Saturn in Pisces. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, getting ready to square direct Saturn in Pisces on December the 24th. And they are now within 5 degrees of each other. So this idea of how can Jupiter's ending and new beginning energy in the sign of Gemini, remember where Jupiter goes, he ends a 12-13-year cycle, starts a 12-13-year cycle of greater alignment for you in the part of the chart that he is transiting. He's often connecting that to the last transit he made through your 9th house and what sort of compass you set for yourself. And Jupiter has to do this in order to help Saturn stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. Once Mercury is direct and you are in greater action over the next couple of weeks around actually feeling like you can implement or speak your piece, P-I-E-C-E, to try and move towards what might create some peace, P-E-A-C-E, for yourself, and ideally give others a path towards it too. And sometimes the peace is about eliminating toxicity. And sometimes when we're trying to eliminate or manage or reduce noise from relationships that are fundamentally toxic, the dance that we get to do is more about, especially when you're talking about people who don't want to release, who want to keep that element of toxicity going, because It's all that they've got going on in their lives. It's where they get the energy. It's where they get the news. It's where they get the drama. It's where they get the, they're not working towards anything else that is really constructive. Then you've got to figure out how you can do that. There's going to be a certain amount of conflict in that anyway, but you've got to figure out how you can do that in a way that sometimes it's just about being able to say what we need to say, but in the most respectful way possible. But then also to know where it is that we have to lock the door and how we go about doing it. But we even in those situations, we can do it in ways that are highly reactive and that can make the situation worse and more dramatic and more chaotic, or do it in a way that at least we feel like we've acted from a place of integrity towards ourselves and integrity towards the situation. And while in certain cases the drama may still continue, at least we feel like we've done our best there and managed the situation so that what was always going to be an ugly resolution, that we've gotten the ugliness to a place where it is, to the best of our abilities, the least chaotic way of dealing with a situation. But in other cases, I would say, try and be open to what you've learned over the last 3 weeks and see if it has clarified something. If the insights and the ahas that you've received may actually be informing you. And this is very important with Mars being retrograde now. If the ahas that you have received are informing you about, do I need to revise how I'm approaching and acting in a certain situation, especially if it's about drawing boundaries or conflict, because I've learned something that is making me realize that everything was not exactly what I thought it was. Have I received some insights as to how it is that I may have contributed to this situation, and that is making things more complicated or worse? Mars' entry into Leo in November definitely made November a feistier month. And in December, we got to kind of reverse and go, And Mars is going to be reversing all the way into Cancer in January, all the way to February the 24th. And then direct, and it's not going to make its way back into Leo until the middle of April. When we approach the Mars in Leo energy, we can be more grounded and we can really feel like the certain things that need to be closed out have been closed out, related to the Cancer part of the chart, and we can enter the Leo part of the chart with that Mars energy of pursuing goals and drawing boundaries in a much more confident way. Until the middle of April, anyway, every progressive day as we head to the middle of April adds something astrological practically that contributes to this. Try and bring some resolution to the things that need to be ended so that you can get to the new with a cleaner, clearer energy. And the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is the first of those areas of focus. Mars' retrograde between Leo and Cancer is the second, and then starting March, Venus and Mercury being retrograde between Aries and Pisces is the third. And somewhere there's a connection between what we're trying to close out and bring resolution to, so that by the time we get to the middle to the end of April for some of you, end of the first week of June for others, we feel like, all right, we've landed on something that is hopefully stabler. Not completely cleaned out, not completely cleared, but energetically stabler with the energy of us moving forward. And the energy of transformation and change is here. The energy that we were dealing between March of 2023 and November of 2024, the stagnation of it has now ended. Since November, especially November 22nd, 23rd of this year, we are actively in a place that is creating change. It's a different energy. We're actually engaged with releasing what we need to release with the South Node eclipses in the Libra part of the chart, and leaning into and making the most out of the Aries North Node eclipses by the end of the first week of June or the end of April, depending on whether you have Mercury retrograde or direct in your chart. If you have Mercury retrograde in your chart, it may be that you feel the last of those Aries North Node eclipses around March 29th, the week before, week after. If you have Mercury direct in your chart, you may feel the impact of that eclipse more the week before and after May 29th of next year. The second of the three aspects that are being made, encoded into this chart, is of course a retrograde Mars trining the North Node in Aries. So we do have Mercury retrograde trining Mars retrograde tomorrow, and then Mars is getting ready to trine Mercury retrograde. The actual trine goes exact on the same day that Mars opposes Pluto, on January the 2nd. But we're within a 5-degree approaching aspect now between Mars and the North Node trining. And as I've said, this Mars retrograde is the only thing to fear, if you want to use that word, the only thing that we really have to pay attention to that is a disruptive transit, but it's one of those cases where I feel like the disruption is needed, is the Mars-Pluto opposition. I'm not considering the Mars-Pluto opposition as totally encoded into this full moon. I have a feeling that the full moon will occur, the Gemini full moon, and after that, we're going to start to build towards the second Mars-Pluto, second of three Mars-Pluto opposition. But somewhere, a retrograde Mars trining the North Node is already present, and it's a positive thing. How can I support the Aries North Node and the Aries North Node eclipses? But it's coming more from a place of what do I need to clean up at this point in time. Mars will go direct and trine the North Node again. By the time that happens, it will happen when Mars is direct in Cancer and the North Node has moved into Pisces. But that's fine. It's at least we have one trine there. The third aspect that is also encoded into this full moon, which goes exact on, give me one sec, guys. Why can I not find this now? Oh, here we go. Which goes exact on January the 5th, is that the South Node trines Pluto. The South Node in Libra trining Pluto in Aquarius. And again, Pluto getting ready to create his transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart, supporting, I should really say, the South Node and what we need to release in the Libra part of the chart, supporting what Pluto is trying to, the change that Pluto is trying to create in the Aquarius part of the chart. That became clear to a lot of us between January 20th and February 20th of 2024. Pluto entering, Mercury conjuncting Pluto on February the 5th of 2024. Mars conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius on February the 14th. Venus conjuncting Pluto on February the 17th. Venus just conjuncting Pluto again a few days ago. As I said to you in my monthly overview, there's something about Venus's transit through Aquarius and the transits that the personal planets will make through Aquarius starting the end of January of next year that is very much in harmony with these energies. Venus direct is going to trine Jupiter from Aquarius to Gemini on December the 19th. So somewhere this Venus and Aquarius energy is trying to help bring something into the picture through a certain kind of, is contributing to this conversation about the things that need to be changed and built. So the full moon itself squares Neptune, but out of the three aspects that I encoded into the full moon, only one of them, Jupiter Saturn square, probably the most important one, is a square. The other two are trines. The Jupiter-Saturn square is very much embedded in this energy of Sun in Sagittarius, full moon in Gemini, squaring Neptune in Pisces, and Jupiter getting ready to square Saturn in Pisces. That's one narrative, and I've spent a lot of time in the beginning of this video talking about bringing the Sagittarius part of the chart into alignment. What we're learning about the connection with this full moon in the Gemini part of the chart, contemplating everything that has happened in the Sagittarius part of the chart practically since Venus came into the Sagittarius part of the chart between the middle of October to the end of the first week of November. Contemplate right now, just watching all that energy grow into this giant bubble that we then get to get the air out of over the next couple of weeks. And action and communication may well be required. Mercury will go direct, and Mercury will remain in Sagittarius till January the 11th. So we get to observe while Mercury is stationary everything that we know, everything that we've learned, the decisions that we've made, depending on whether you have Mercury direct or retrograde in your chart. And then once Mercury goes direct, we can start to bring, through communication, matters in the Sagittarius part of the chart into alignment. What we need to contemplate as a result of this full moon is, why did Mercury go retrograde? What has it made us rethink? Where have we gone back to the drawing board? What is the full moon in Gemini bringing to our attention? What are we learning? And how can we, as we bring things into alignment, do things in such a way that they can help bring a certain amount of stability to a situation and bring us an energy of peace to a situation, while keeping in mind that there's nothing peaceful about designing a peace that betrays ourselves. So for some of us, this is going to be setting the boundaries and creating peace. It might be a little bit more dramatic than for others. But the question is, how can we do this in the most mature way possible, empowered way possible, and maintain a cleanness to the proceedings to the best of our ability? That doesn't mean that everything needs to be shared. It's a question of even what we communicate and what we choose not to communicate could very much come from Mercury direct is going to square Saturn, is going to oppose Jupiter again, is going to trine Chiron again. So we do have an opportunity to integrate everything that we have learned since Mercury entered Sagittarius the middle of November, and do it one more time, but better this time, based on everything we know. The other two aspects encoded into the full moon are both trines. Mars retrograde trining the North Node in Aries. Where am I going? How can all of this support? And how I've been approaching conflict and pursuing my goals be revised in such a way that it can support where I'm trying to go? And how will the opposition to Pluto, the second opposition to Pluto, and the trines to Saturn and Neptune, once Mars enters Cancer, the first aspect that Mars is making when retrograde is trining the North Node. All the other aspects are going to come after that. Now, on the same day, he does oppose Pluto as well. I will go back to that monthly overview. You know, whatever's going on in the Aquarius part of the chart with Pluto, in the middle of all of this, there is a link up. This narrative is all integrated. What is going on in the Sagittarius and Gemini and the Pisces part of the chart is one story, but it is integrated with Venus being in Aquarius, underpinned by what Pluto is trying to transform in the Aquarius part of your chart, and has already made its presence felt since the beginning of 2024, all the way to 2042. But the Venus-Mars opposition yesterday, Mars getting ready to oppose Pluto and trine the North Node, Venus getting ready to trine Jupiter through Aquarius, somewhere this narrative of the Leo-Aquarius opposition and Venus making through Aquarius is also, it's all one narrative, it's all one story. feeding into, ultimately, if you were to say, Abhi, what is this trying to get to? It's trying to, Pluto is the most powerful of all these planets. And everything is actually trying to work towards, even Saturn trying to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart is ultimately trying to support Pluto, trying to make his transformation for your benefit in the Aquarius part of the chart. And remember, with Pluto, the two biggest obstacles to Pluto is us being attached to something that Pluto is trying to take away from us and saying, it's not for you, it's not the best thing for you, but we're just holding on to it, or other people holding on to us in a way that is preventing our positive transformation. That's what creates that power struggle dynamic with Pluto. But Pluto is going to try his best to liberate you from all of that. So try and understand what is going on so that you can, as strategically as possible, Saturn, as responsibly. Strategic with Saturn does not mean being crafty or having a negative intention. If you act with a negative intention or an immature intention or a reactive intention with Saturn involved, it will not work out for you. If you act from a place where the intention is clean and clear and honors yourself, and to the best of your ability honors the other person as well, we can all say no politely if that is what we need to do. We're not going to be able to control the reaction that other people have to it, but we can help manage the chaos to some extent with the cleanness of our execution. Then even how to do so strategically is ultimately trying to feed into Pluto, trying to transform the Aquarius part of the chart for our benefit. And that talks directly not only to Mars trining the North Node and getting ready to oppose Pluto, but also a couple of days after that, the South Node in Libra trining Pluto, saying, what do we need to release to help you, Pluto, in the Libra part of the chart? The two other aspects that are not entirely encoded in this, they're still a little over 5 degrees apart. One of them, of course, is Mars opposing Pluto, and I really feel like that starts to take hold after the full moon. The full moon happens, and as we get into execution mode, we start to honor that Mars retrograde opposition to Pluto. And we start to get into action to support giving peace a chance. But again, giving peace a chance means bringing peace to yourself. And that does not mean betraying ourselves or being passive or saying yes when we mean no, or no when we mean yes. And as we head to the full moon, we may really be in a place where we're just taking stock. Mercury, the ruler of the full moon, is stationary, just getting ready to go direct. So when Mercury goes direct, what are we going to do? How have we gone back to the drawing board and what we learned if Mercury is direct in our birth charts while Mercury is retrograde? What have you decided if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart? The final aspect of the two, intriguingly, is the North Node getting ready to conjunct Neptune. And that doesn't happen for me till February of next year, I think. I need to look at the exact date of that. And now that is, I don't know, and that is, it happens in Pisces, and it has much more to do with, but it's fascinating. Listen, again, we're talking about Neptune, the planet that, what this full moon is bringing to our awareness, intuitive emotional awareness, is, remember when we had the first of the North Node eclipses in Pisces on September the 17th of this year, with the week before and after July the 17th also being important. It made us very present to this Neptunian influence in Pisces. What has been going on since 2012 in the Pisces part of your chart? What led to some kind of a crisis in 2016-17? What is Saturn trying to stabilize? It could be positive if Saturn is trying to create structure in the house occupied by Pisces, and you have Piscean goals, healing, music, arts, spirituality, creativity. With Neptune, certain modalities of therapy, even. But for those of you who've been dealing with Neptune's energies with a kind of fogginess or deceptiveness or an inability to be responsible in the Pisces part of the chart, Saturn since March 2023 saying, no, enough. We've had enough consequences of that deceptiveness, fogginess, irresponsibility from our side, inability to act in a structured, responsible way. And Saturn is saying we've got to clean that up. But this full moon, unlike the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on September the 17th, which was conjunct Neptune, this full moon in Gemini is square Neptune. So it picks up on similar themes and gives us an awareness of where we are at right now after that last full moon eclipse. And the North Node getting ready to conjunct Neptune is very much, remember, the eclipses are changing signs. The Aries North Node eclipse and the Libra South Node eclipse for me are still the primary energy till March 29th and even May 29th. I keep saying the end of the first week of June for this reason of next year. But the Pisces North Node, Virgo South Node eclipses are going to keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger because that's the direction in which we're going. And ultimately, everything that is happening with this full moon is trying to serve two parts of the chart. Allowing Saturn and working with Saturn to counter the effects of Neptune in the Pisces part of the chart. And if you're trying to do something creative or therapeutic in the Pisces part of the chart or build a community around it, etc., then Saturn's saying, Saturn is all about, let's get this done. Let's do it professionally. Let's do it well. Let's set some stretch goals. Let's achieve. Let's fulfill our highest potential. But where things have been irresponsible, your side, their side, a combination of both, your side in certain cases in the Pisces part of the chart, their side in others, Saturn is saying, let's stop the leak and the bleeding. And then the second part of the chart is Pluto and Aquarius, the Aquarius part of the chart, where Pluto is saying, let's transform this for your highest benefit. Let's end what needs to be ended. So that the new can be created. But the full moon itself, you're going to be feeling, and this is already in the air over the past week, certainly the past 48 hours, 24 hours, and is going to be the case over the next 24 hours. You will feel energetically and emotionally and intuitively full moony and messy. And very aware of those Neptunian energies in Pisces. Very aware of the crisis in Pisces. Very aware of it. I just don't think that it's time to be in communication right now with the parties actually involved. Once Mercury goes direct and starts to become some speed, right now it's a contemplation of, as I said, in certain cases, what does it mean to get yourself to a more peaceful place and start that process, and it will continue all the way to the middle of to the end of April. And this Mercury retrograde is the first of these three retrograde energies that is going to get us there. And the first of these energies now ends by the 15th. The second being Mars retrograde, which won't end till February the 24th. And then the Mercury and Venus retrogrades in March and April of next year, which won't end till the middle of April next year. Okay? I'm going to leave it at this. Enough to contemplate, enough to think about. And contemplating what you value, how to protect that, how to manage energy leaks, how to get to a more peaceful place. Nothing wrong if this involves you contemplating what you've learned. Something may have shifted about what you feel you know, what may have happened, how you contributed to things. If you have lessons to be learned that are going to help you modify how you go about things, nothing wrong with changing the story that has been going on in your head to integrate what you now know. That could be at the heart of how it is that you're able to give peace a chance. If certain things have been occurring and other people are totally to blame for it, you could be in a place with this Mercury retrograde that's squared Saturn where you are clearer about, oh, this is how I could be making things worse or have made things worse, or where my immaturity or reactivity in certain situations could have contributed to a certain situation. And if that helps you understand how to do things differently once Mercury goes direct, I would applaud that, no question about it. But ultimately, the peace has to be a lasting peace, which means that it can't be built on self-betrayal. My contact information is in the description box below. If you're interested in the $50 single topic readings, get in touch with me by the end of the day on the 15th, ideally over the next few days. If you want to give readings as holiday gifts, you can write to me and I can give you information about that. If you want to ask about regular readings, that's the email address to use. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Next to the subscribe button, bell icon, hover over that wiggly bell on top, click on that, and you'll be notified when I do new videos. Like the video if you don't mind, and leave a comment if you feel so inclined. Those are free ways to support the channel, and they give the video greater circulation on YouTube. At least that's my understanding. Okay? I will leave it at this. Have as peaceful with regard to content. Just integrate what this Mercury retrograde has brought to you. Contemplate how are you going to move forward after Mercury goes direct to help Jupiter create the endings and new beginnings, the Gemini part of the chart? What does that mean for you? What does it mean for you to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart? What needs to be brought into alignment in the Gemini part, in the Sagittarius part of the chart? What is going on with this Mars-Pluto opposite, this connection between the Leo and the Aquarius part of the chart, and how they're contributing to what is actually going on? It's not going to be a comfortable full moon. It's not, the happiest part of it is that there might be some visibility in a certain direction. That'll be nice. And offer visibility with Mercury stationary. I don't know about the offer, but I think it is more important to examine the discomfort right now. And then you can be in greater communication mode after December the 17th, 18th or so, once Mercury is at least starting to get just a little bit of momentum. Okay? All right, folks, I will talk to you all soon. Take care.